I think as a parent of teens myself, you walk a fine line, right? Because you want that relationship with them, but you don't want to smother them because they're trying to find their independence and their personality, and also just being a teenager. So I guess what would be your tips to kind of foster that?
Yeah, I think first of all, what you said is most important. Let's acknowledge that you may not be their favorite person to talk to about hard stuff. I know once, upon a time you might have been, but it's kind of changing. And so we have to first recognize how we feel about that and how it might kind of hurt and sting a little bit. But then once we acknowledge that, let's move to a space of how can I create a safe place for my teenager? How can I make it inviting and comforting and supportive so that they're going to want to talk to me about the hard stuff?
And one of the hard things is when they're stressed.
Yes.
What can parents look for? What can parents do if they start to see some signs that their kids might be overwhelmed?
The first thing is to notice it and name it. So connect with your child, talk to them about what you're noticing and observing, and check in and ask, I'm noticing that you're starting to kind of behave in these ways, and I'm wondering if you're having a hard time managing something. Can we talk about it? Invite them to share with you what they're comfortable sharing, and then validate, validate, validate. Normalize. If you need to self-disclose a little bit to talk about how tough managing, teenage years was for you, this is the time to get real with them. Share in an age appropriate way, but sometimes that can really help our teens understand, like, okay, yes, mom is mom, dad is dad, grandparents are grandparents, but they once kind of were teens and stuff was hard for them too. And so noticing what's going on, asking them to share and talk about it, and then trying to connect with them before you start throwing solutions at them. Connect and see, how can I help you feel better and manage your stress better?
No two kids are the same. So I know, like, there's not a blanket set of tips for every single kid, but what are some things that parents can offer for kids who are dealing with stress?
So I always like to say, let's start with the basics, the stuff that we all know, but it's just so easy to disregard the importance of, such as eating healthy foods and getting healthy intake, drinking enough water, getting outside, moving our bodies, making sure that our blood is flowing and we're getting sunshine and vitamin D, and getting adequate sleep, right? When our bodies are in a state of stress, we're oftentimes not paying attention to those very, very basic and essential needs that we have. And if we can tap into that, oftentimes we're so much better able to manage stress because we're thinking clearly, because we've slept well, we've eaten well, our digestion is working correctly, and things don't feel as overwhelming and big. So do the normal stuff first. And then model for your kids what works for you. So whether for you it's movement like yoga and meditation, mindfulness, whether it's talking to a friend, whether it's planting something and seeing it grow and getting to experience the joy of that, connecting with people in person or connecting virtually, whatever it is that fills you, share that with your teen because maybe that's something they can do. When's the last time you helped them organize a hangout or gave them permission to do something outside of the norm? Teens aren't the best planners. They may have ideas and want to do things, but actually making those things come to fruition, sometimes they need a little bit of support.
We, as Americans, are just constantly in this like go, go, go mentality. And I think it's really important to get that reminder, like you just said, to slow down and take care of us, because everything that's happening around us, everything we're a part of, isn't going to happen as well if we are not functioning well. And that applies to adults and kids.
Absolutely. I think one of the things I talk to so many of my parents about is collective stress. And we could even take it as far as like collective trauma. There's so much going on in our world right now, as you said, that you're not really alone in some of those emotions. And sometimes it can be so validating to know that there's other people that are going through similar circumstances with all the extra stuff that they have that's personal to them. But on the outside, there's this kind of, big feeling of sometimes things don't feel safe. And sometimes, we think over and over again about what to do to feel safe and to keep our kids safe, to keep our families safe. And so that can subconsciously kind of live in the back of our head and exacerbate whatever's at the forefront and making us feel worried or stressed about something. And so acknowledging that and saying, we may not be able to control all of the things outside of us, but what we can control is internally within our home and within our family. Here's how we're committed to helping to take care of ourselves individually and then ourselves collectively as a family unit.
When it gets to the point where it's sort of beyond what the parent can handle, what are those first steps?
I think it's just important to remember that when your stress begins to really disrupt and impair your daily functioning, when you're noticing, that your teen is just not themselves, they're not getting the same joy from being around their friends, they're not connecting in the ways that they connected, they're irritable, they're grumpy, their mood isn't really as, positive as it can be. They're not really enjoying things they usually enjoy that used to be fulfilling for them. They may be showing signs of something more serious and deeper. And so it's so important to being open to seeking professional help because, as we said earlier, you may not be their go to right now to talk about what's going on with them. And so being open to seeing a therapist and talking to a mental health professional about what may be going on can really help them find ways to manage and learn coping skills and strategies so that it improves their stress and helps them to function better overall.
Wonderful. Was there anything else that you wanted to add that I didn't ask about?
I think just in general, remembering how difficult adolescence and those teenage years are. I mean, we're talking about our bodies changing and puberty and sexual development and maturation and curiosity.
And now social media.
Dating. Oh my gosh, yes. And then access to anything, at the tips of our fingers. It is so challenging. And, the way our brain is still functioning and growing and trying to catch up with everything going on, we've just got to have grace with our kids. We've got to be patient. We have to remember this too shall pass. It is a temporary time frame. The more that we can love on them and nurture them and support them, the better able they're going to learn how to manage stress so that they can go on and be fully functioning, capable adults that can manage stress because it's an inevitable part of life. And it helps them in some ways to get things done and to be productive. And so let's remember that and hold space for them as much as we can because it is an important and special time of their lives.